first couple days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when there's no pads on, it's a tough assessment. I think today there were some better situational things from yesterday, and things that we still want to improve upon. I think we did a 2-minute drill, some good stuff, some good situations that we got out of that with the ones. But like anything in camp, we got stuff we got to improve on, and we've got thinking about this the other day. I mean, I believe we only have one guy coming back that started every single game last year, in Isaiah. So now we have a lot of guys that played meaningful snaps. So it's a whole new team, it's a whole new defense, and a big time challenge for our staff to be able to rise up and hold our guys to the standard that we want to play and represent this university with. So long way to go, very much so an unfinished product. Undecided who's going to start and being the two deep at a ton of positions on defense right now. But I think we had guys really push through the heat today. I thought the first day we kind of wilted a little bit and challenged them, and I thought they were out there working pretty humid practices to start camp. So tomorrow in pads will be very telling, his first day in pads, and kind of see where we're at and go from there.
Last year you had a lot of new pieces, especially on the D line. Can that serve almost as a model to do it again and rebuild the defense?
Well, yeah, I think, there's not enough credit given to the assistant coaches on the staff. I think when you're in the role that I'm in, you get, a lot of credit and you get the blame too. But you have to look at our staff. I think at some point in today's day and age where there are more moving, pieces amongst units with the transfer portal, there has to be a lot of credit given to the staff that we have that can continuously bring guys in and coach and develop them. And there are coaches that recruit at a high level but can't coach a lick, and then there are coaches that can recruit and can develop. And I think we're very blessed. I'm very blessed to work with what I believe is arguably the best defensive staff in the country, and I really do believe that as far as technique, details, fundamentals, and we're going to need that with a bunch of new guys. Really you kind of are talking about Coach Tibbs and the development that he's done with our D-line. When you look at the success that he's had with guys coming here in the past, getting developed, and then going on to play, at a high level and or on Sundays. And so, between him and Coach Dunham up front this season, it's going to be huge, being able to develop the guys that we've brought in. Same thing with Coach Crum with, a couple new linebackers and trying to get them ready, as well as bringing, the guys that haven't played as much along to the development level that we need them. And same thing with Coach Hundley. We've got 2 freshman corners that are coming in new, and then we've got one transfer corner. So, but I think those first 3 coaches in particular are going to have the biggest challenge as far as developing their those rooms, and then kind of in the safety room, it's not as much from a transfer standpoint, but just getting our younger guys developed, guys that have been in the system, been in the program, and getting them confident to play the game at a high level. So, I think, once again, I don't think our staff gets enough credit, our assistant coaches, as far as the job that they've done here developing guys.
You talked about it. With all the new faces on defense, how helpful has it been having the same staff back to where at least you've got that sort of continuity?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, I think it speaks large volumes to our head coach, number one, and the fact that we all love coming to work every single day, working at a university that, we have a lot of pride in what we've built here and what we want to continue to build here. If you don't have that culture, I don't think we have that continuity. And so, I got to give the credit to, the leadership at our university, to Coach Lashley, and how, just he treats our staff, and how, the way in which he goes about doing things makes us want to be here, makes us want to stay here, makes us want to raise our families here. I think in today's day and age, there's a big knock on college coaches that, the players leave, they'll just leave for the next job. But, when you got something good, like, the grass isn't always greener. And, I think it's important that money doesn't define every decision. But, man, when you're happy and you're with good people and in a good place, then, count your blessings. So, I think it starts with him, and it is very, to your point, does make it a lot easier as a staff when we don't have to go through day one install as a whole defensive staff, over and over again. We put up the install schedule, everybody know what to do. Yes, we've done it, going on 3 years in a row without a staff change. And then I think off of that, probably doesn't get enough credit with that is like we have a lot of analysts that have come back that are extremely helpful with, Coach Ori with our linebackers. Coach Messer rejoined us coming back from Indiana. He made a decision to leave and realized this is where I want to be and wanted to come back. And he was obviously with me at Liberty. Coach Bonnie, been here, now off and on going on 3 years. So when you look at those guys in those roles, there's also continuity for them. Like for me with the safeties, like, yes, I'm the safeties coach, but Coach Bones does a ton as far as coaching the safeties, meeting with the safeties, helping me juggle those roles. And so he's as much the safeties coach as I am. So like when you have all that continuity, not just full-time, but also analysts and everything else, that does make it a lot easier. Now, ultimately, we want those guys to grow, develop, and get out of those roles, at some point in their career. But for us as a staff, for me, it does make my job a lot easier.
When you look at what Isaiah did this summer on the field or in summer workouts, and then away from the field with what he does in the community, can you kind of share what your thoughts are on him and his development as a person and a player?
Yeah, I think, as a coach, it's oftentimes you're just coaching guys and you're going through it and you're in the, for me, I can get so tunnel vision on certain things. And then, sometimes you don't get to sit back and just appreciate everything in the time, And I speak like Donald Jonathan McGill, who's now out here, being around the guys, volunteering, and just trying to figure out what's next. And, I loved it at the time having him in the meeting room, but it's not until you don't have him in the meeting room that you're like, man, it was really good to have, that Coach McGill in the meeting room and some of the things that he would bring to the table. And so, like when you speak on Isaiah, I mean, it's just what he means to this community, what he means to, where he grew up and just our journey together, I guess, in the time that I've been here is nothing short of remarkable. I mean, you want to talk a guy that, went through adversity from injuries to, not being elevated on the depth chart and, decided to stick it out, persevere. It's just an awesome story, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do, his senior year on the field, and I'm excited for his future and what lies ahead for him. But I know this: whenever football does end, he's going to be extremely successful, because of how he's carried himself, the network, and the relationships that he's built here, both on and off the field, and he's a joy to coach, and it's been a really fun journey to be a part of it with him, and something that I'm really blessed to just have an opportunity to work with him every day.
What have you seen from him with the guys like McGill and other leaders that were pretty vocal last year leaving?
Yeah.
Kind of going from a lead by example to kind of being a more vocal guy.
Yeah.
For you.
That's a great question. Isaiah was a guy that was always a team guy, but was very focused on what he had to do, kind of to your point, to do his job to get better. The guys would always give him a hard time. Like, you give a call, like Isaiah wasn't going to tell anybody. He was going to lock in on his side of the field and go play. And so I think I'm really proud of him, and I'm really proud of Ahmad. Ahmad is not vocal by nature. He'll tell you that. And he really has gotten out of his comfort zone, understanding that he's got to embrace the role of, they're the two most productive returning players on our defense, and so for those two guys to embrace that role, at least within their position group, and I think when you talk about leadership, like if you're not a vocal leader, you don't have to speak all the time, but when you do speak, people are really going to listen because how you carry yourself, and I think that's something that Ahmad's really taken to heart, and so I'm proud of those two guys, and we're going to need them to continue to develop as leaders to really form our identity as a defense. And then other guys like Cam, I think Jeffrey in the D-line room has stepped up, which is awesome, trying to embrace that role, and so on and so forth. And, a guy like Akil Washington that's, transferred in here that is not, he's very much like Ahmad. He's not vocal, but he's a do his job at a high level. And that, we need that leadership to flow throughout the unit as well. So a lot of different types of leaders, and guys are going to have to continue to step up. Like when you looked at last year, E-Rob was never a leader until vocally, really, he did it. Now he did everything the right way, but his senior year, he completely changed and embraced that role. So hopefully, these guys have seen that. I know Coach Grizz has done a great job with the leadership development, him and DC in the off season, and so we will continue to need that. And a guy like Alex Kilgore as well stepping into that role.